sortie tone frightened me. But after everything, after the soup, the starvation, the locked refrigerator, the insults, it didn't. It only solidified what I already knew. Cruelty was the only language Marcus had ever learned to speak. But while he raged, something else was happening. Sophie. Sweet, trembling Sophie. She took one step forward, then another, her little shoulders shaking. She kept her hands behind her back, her phone hidden just out of view. I recognized her posture instantly, the stillness, the caution. She was recording. My brave girl was recording. Marcus kept screaming, not noticing her. "You ruined everything," he shouted. "You think you're some kind of victim? You think people still care about you? We drugged you. We needed you confused. Shut up, Vivian. You agreed to this?" Vivian gasped. "Marcus, stop talking. She's right there." But it was too late. Every word was falling straight into Sophie's phone, each sentence sealing their fate. I caught Sophie's eyes for a moment. She looked terrified, but determined. I gave her the faintest nod. She nodded back. Marcus noticed the movement and turned. "What are you doing?" he demanded, stepping towards Sophie with the same murderous glare he had given me so many times. Sophie hid the phone behind her body, but her voice didn't shake. "Daddy, stop yelling!" In that moment, I realized the cycle had finally broken. Not because I fought back, but because a child decided she would not inherit her parents' cruelty. He moved closer, too close. Marcus whipped his head toward me, nostrils flaring. I met his gaze without flinching. "You want to know the truth?" I said, my voice steady, almost calm. "You want to know why you've spent your whole life hating me?" In that moment, I realized the cycle had finally broken. Not because I fought back, but because a child decided she would not inherit her parents' cruelty. He blinked, confused. I swallowed hard. This secret had been buried under 40 years of guilt, but it was time. "Your father didn't just leave," I said. "He told you something before he walked out that night. He told you were the burden, that raising you was too much." Marcus staggered as if I'd slapped him. "He said it to your face?" I whispered. "He told you were the problem, not me." Marcus's mouth opened, but no sound came out. A single trembling breath escaped him, then another. His anger flickered, cracking at the edges. For the first time, he looked wounded, small, like the lost boy he once was. But sympathy was long dead in me. "That was his cruelty," I said, "not mine. But you spent your whole life punishing me for his sins." Vivian stared at Marcus in shock, as if she had never heard the story either. Marcus's face twisted in pain, then twisted again into something darker. Denial, rage, panic. He lunged toward the laptop, but Sophie stepped between us. "Stop," she said. Her voice didn't shake this time, and I realized something as I watched my granddaughter stand her ground. This wasn't just my fight anymore. Sophie was choosing me, choosing truth, choosing justice. Marcus's anger shattered against her courage, like a wave against a rock. He backed up, chest heaving, eyes darting between me, Sophie, and the laptop like a trapped animal. He knew it. He was finished. The recordings, the confession, the old footage, the poison, the plot, the truth. Everything was about to turn against him. And for the first time in years, I felt the cold, steady certainty of justice rising like dawn behind my ribs. Tomorrow, the world would know what they had done, and they would finally answer for it. The morning of the hearing felt colder than any winter I had known in North Carolina. Not because of the weather, but because of what I carried inside me. I sat in my wheelchair, Sophie's small hand wrapped around mine, steadying me. She was the reason I was alive, the reason the truth had finally crawled out from under the floorboards Marcus and Vivian tried to bury me beneath. When the bailiff opened the courtroom door, my heart thudded once, painfully, then settled into something calm and resigned, but not afraid, never again afraid. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as we entered. Marcus sat at the defense table, eyes darting, face ashen. Vivian sat beside him in a wrinkled blazer, mascara smudged under her eyes, lips trembling in fury and fear. When she saw me, she hissed under her breath, "This isn't over, old woman." The bailiff immediately warned her to quiet down. For once, she listened. The judge, a stern woman with graying hair tied tight at the nape of her neck, looked over the file in front of her. "We are here to review allegations of elder abuse, intentional poisoning, fraud, conspiracy, and child endangerment," she said, her voice echoing across the room. "Mrs. Joanne Whitmore, please present your evidence." My attorney didn't need theatrics. The truth was ugly enough on its own. First, he pressed play on the video, the one from my hidden camera. Vivian's voice filled the courtroom. "Just a few weeks and she'll forget her own damn name. Then guardianship is mine." Gasps rippled through the room. Vivian buried her face in her hands, but the judge wasn't watching her. She was watching me. Then came Marcus's voice, dripping with arrogance. "We drugged her. We needed her confused. Shut up, Vivian." The judge's eyebrows shot up. Even Marcus recoiled at the sound of his own words. Next, my attorney displayed a photograph of the refrigerator in Marcus's house, locked with a metal clasp drilled into the door. "Evidence," he said, "that Mrs. Whitmore was intentionally denied food." Another photo followed. The bruises on my arms, the sharp angles of my shoulders, the yellowed marks across my ribs. Then came the medical report. Severe dehydration, malnutrition, elevated cortisol, consistent with long-term abuse. Every page landed like a stone in the courtroom's silence. Finally, the last piece, a neighbor's sworn statement. The bailiff read it aloud. I heard Marcus screaming at his mother, "Eat from the trash if you want food." I also saw the little girl, Sophie, crying as he told her to shut up when she begged him to stop yelling at Joanne. Vivian collapsed against her chair. Marcus clenched his jaw so hard his neck trembled. The judge folded her hands. "The evidence is overwhelming." She turned to Marcus and Vivian. "You did not merely neglect an elderly woman, you orchestrated her decline. You attempted to poison her, steal her legal rights, seize her assets, and intimidate a child who tried to protect her grandmother. This court does not take such crimes lightly." Vivian burst into tears, sobbing loud enough that one of the jurors flinched. Marcus's lawyer put a hand on his shoulder, but Marcus jerked away, eyes wild. The judge read the charges one by one. Felony elder abuse. Vivian whimpered. Intentional drugging of a vulnerable adult. Marcus clenched his fists until his knuckles whitened. Attempted fraud through guardianship manipulation. Conspiracy to commit financial exploitation. Child endangerment, specifically regarding Sophie Whitmore. Vivian's head dropped as if the words themselves had weight. Marcus swallowed hard, sweat beading on his forehead. Both defendants are remanded into custody immediately. As the bailiffs moved in, Marcus suddenly shoved his chair back and stumbled toward me until the officers blocked his path. He dropped to his knees behind them, tears streaming down his face in ugly streaks. "Mom, please," he choked out. "Please help me." His voice was not the voice of a man. It was the voice of the wounded boy he once was, begging for someone to blame, someone to save him. I looked down at him, feeling everything and nothing at once. The years of cruelty, the hunger, the insults, the night he left me on the kitchen floor, the soup, the poison, the plan to erase me. I leaned forward slightly. The entire courtroom fell silent. "My son," I said softly, died the day he wanted me gone. The words left my mouth like a stone dropped into still water, and the silence that followed was deeper than any I had ever known. Marcus's shoulders crumbled. Vivian screamed as the cuffs closed around her wrists. The judge struck her gavel. Court adjourned. And just like that, the nightmare ended, and justice, real justice, finally took its first breath. When the judge granted temporary guardianship to Sophie instead of Marcus's relatives, I felt something inside my chest loosen for the first time in years. It wasn't victory exactly. It was survival, finally settling into my bones. Sophie held my hand the entire ride home.
My granddaughter whispered, "Grandma, don't eat that soup." So I checked the hidden camera, and I knew what I have to do next. Vivian slammed the bowl onto the table so hard, the soup sloshed over the rim and splattered onto my wrist, its heat biting deep into my skin as she barked, "Sit down, Joanne. Old relics like you should be grateful we feed you." The words landed heavier than the bowl. She stood there in her spotless kitchen in North Carolina, arms crossed, chin lifted like she was addressing something beneath her rather than the woman who raised her husband. Before I could settle into the chair, Marcus added without looking at me, "Mom, try not to choke. We still need your signature." He said it the way a banker might talk about a loan he intended to collect. Not like a son speaking to the mother who'd carried him through storms he never even knew existed. My hands trembled as I reached for the bowl, steam curling upward in thin ribbons. It wasn't the steam that scared me. It was the way Vivian watched me, leaning forward, lips curled, eyes narrowed with something between disgust and anticipation. I had seen people look at strays that way, never their own family. Sophie peeked from the hallway, gripping the doorframe with both hands. Her voice was barely a breath. "Grandma, don't eat that." Her large brown eyes locked on mine, filled with a fear far too old for her tiny frame. Vivian snapped her head toward the child. "Sophie, stay out of grown-up business." But even as she hissed those words, Sophie didn't look away. She only shook her head slowly, silently pleading with me. In that moment, everything in my chest tightened. Children don't fear soup. They fear the people who make it. I swallowed hard. The kitchen felt smaller, like the walls themselves were listening. They always seemed to listen in this house, a house that once belonged to me. At least before my hips snapped like brittle wood against the edge of my porch and Marcus swooped in before I even woke from surgery. He didn't bring me here out of love. He didn't rearrange his home out of duty. He wanted the deed to my house, my pension checks, my insurance benefits. And while he waited for all of that to fall neatly into his hands, I was expected to sit here and be grateful. Vivian wiped the soup splatter off the table with the edge of a towel, clicking her tongue like a disappointed schoolteacher. "Honestly," she said, "you're lucky we let you stay here at all. A nursing home wouldn't waste a bed on you. They'd shove you into the corner and wait for nature to finish the job." I kept my eyes down, staring into the cloudy broth. Something floated near the surface. Too pale, too soft, too swollen, not a vegetable, not anything I recognized. My stomach twisted. Marcus leaned closer, his breath sour with the beer he cracked open before noon. "Go on, Mom," he said. "You're not helpless. Eat." But I was, at least physically. And they treated that weakness like an invitation. "Mom," he added, with a cold smirk, "you look like a stray mutt staring at a full bowl. Just eat before we change our minds." His words stung. But what hurt more was the confidence behind them. The certainty that I wouldn't fight back. The certainty that no one would believe me if I did. As I stared at the spoon shaking between my fingers, a single thought flickered through me. If anyone out there heard this kind of cruelty, maybe they would understand what women like me endure in silence. And if you feel justice deserves celebration, smash that hype button. Let us keep stories like this alive, echoing far, far away. Your support helps us bring understanding and love to those who deserve it. Thank you so much. Keep listening. Vivian pulled the chair closer, an ugly eagerness tightening her features. Eat, Joanne. The way she said my name like it was something rotten she found in the back of her fridge made my chest ache. I lifted the spoon, my hand trembling so violently that the liquid rippled. Sophie stepped forward again. Grandma, please. Vivian's voice cracked like a whip. Sophie, one more word and you'll be grounded so long you'll forget what sunlight looks like, Marcus chuckled. Let the kid talk. She's already smarter than you ever were, Mom. I held the spoon inches from my mouth. The smell grew stronger, acidic sharpness that did not belong in food. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Vivian's eyes followed my every movement, that same eager, hungry stare. That was when the truth hit me. Hard, cold, clear. No one cooks with malice on accident. No one watches someone eat with anticipation unless they're waiting for something to happen. It wasn't family. I wasn't being fed. I was being handled, managed, pushed. Sophie's whisper echoed inside me again. Don't eat that. I placed the spoon back into the bowl very slowly. I'm not hungry, I whispered. Vivian slammed her palm onto the table hard enough to rattle the silverware. Eat it. And as I lifted my head and looked into her eyes, something inside me, something old, something bruised, something that had survived far worse, finally opened. Because in that single moment, I understood this wasn't the beginning of my suffering. It was the beginning of their downfall. People assume hatred begins with something loud, something violent, something unforgettable. But Marcus's hatred for me began quietly, in a room full of children who adored me more than he could ever understand. Long before my bones grew fragile and my hands trembled, I was Mama Jo, the woman who ran the most trusted daycare in Winston-Salem. Parents lined up outside my door before sunrise, some with coffee, some with hope, some with desperation. They all left their children with me because they believed I carried a softness the world had taken from them. And I did. Children always felt safe with me. They clung to my apron, tugged my sleeves, called my name like it was a song they'd learned by heart. Mama Jo, Mama Jo. I loved each of them the way I wished the world would love children. Fully, gently, without conditions. But Marcus saw it differently. He was only a little boy then, small and wide-eyed, watching from the doorway as toddlers wrapped their arms around my waist. He stood there while I soothed, scraped knees, braided hair, wiped tears, kissed foreheads, and every act of kindness I gave another child seeded something bitter in him. One afternoon I was late picking him up from his after-school program, the only time it ever happened in his life because one of the daycare DBs choked on a grape. I performed back blows until her tiny cry split the air like a miracle. But by the time I reached Marcus, the sky had darkened and he was the last child waiting. He didn't speak when he saw me. He didn't cry or ask what happened. He just turned and walked toward the car, silent, in that cold, dangerous way only children can. That night he whispered to me, "You forgot me." I told him I never forgot him. Not for a breath, not for a second. But children don't hear explanations. They hear wounds. And the next day, some boy on the playground laughed at him and said, "Mama Jo loves other kids more than his own." That single sentence lodged itself inside him like a thorn he never pulled out. I didn't know how deep it burrowed until years later, and when they married, that hate didn't fade, it sharpened. They built a life together, layering resentment like bricks. Every struggle they faced, every disappointment, every bill they couldn't pay, they traced back to me in some twisted way. Marcus said I had chosen other children over him. Vivian said I had stolen her mother's livelihood and future. And together, they found comfort in blaming me for every empty space in their lives. So when I fell and broke my hip, when I needed help walking, bathing, eating, when I became someone easy to control, they didn't take me in out of love or duty. They took me in because it gave them power, the chance to make me small, weak, dependent, the chance to make me pay for decades of imagined sins. And now, every time Vivian pushed a bowl in front of me with that cruel smile, every time Marcus reminded me whose roof I lived under, I felt the weight of all those years pressing down on my chest. They weren't punishing the old woman I had become, they were punishing the memory of Mama Joe. That was the woman they wanted to destroy, and they were only just getting started. Marcus leaned against the counter, arms folded, watching as if this were entertainment meant for him alone. "She's so slow," he muttered loud enough for me to hear. "If she dies, we finally get the house." He said it casually, like he was talking about the weather. My breath caught in my chest, but I kept my eyes down. I had learned not to react. Reaction only fed them. Vivian grabbed a rag, but instead of cleaning the mess, she tossed it on my lap. "There," she said, "wipe it yourself. You can bend, can't you?" I looked toward the entrance of the room and saw Sophie again, half hidden behind the doorframe. Her small hands gripped the wood, knuckles white. "Grandma, please don't eat that." Her voice trembled. Vivian heard it and rolled her eyes. "Lord, that child is dramatic," she said. "Marcus, she gets it from your side." Marcus smirked. "Nah, she's probably just scared she'll end up like her grandmother, useless, and waiting for someone to bury her."